Hello, everybody, and thank you for coming to our Women's Symposium today. This is our 5th Zoom Symposium, and thank you so much for being here and sharing your time with us. We really have been looking forward to this. A couple of things I want to just go over. Our Facebook site, Denise started it in February, and now it's grown to, as of today, 515. So just a big thanks to everybody who's coming and joining and being a part of this. Really, we truly appreciate all that you do. I'd like to right now introduce to you our team of directors, which has also grown since February. And I'd like to acknowledge both the existing and the new team members. Heather Flessing, Denise Plowman, Michelle Higgins, Marisol Cepedes Arnada, Mika Ulrich, Rihanna Leopard, Madeline Leopard, Jennifer Gibson, Karina Salvo, and we have our newest team member today is Linda Adams. Thank you so much for all of you women who through collaboration and goodwill are making our vision statement come alive. Our mission statement is to help women find community and grow. And since our last Zoom, we've come up with a mission statement now that communicates and defines our purpose, our direction, our goals, makes it a little bit more clear as to what we would like to do. So I'd like to read my mission statement now. And actually today is the first day that we're unleashing this to the public. So we get to share it with you for the first time today. So our mission statement is to be recognized throughout the Kenpo world as a place to encourage one another to achieve collective goodwill for women in Kenpo through recognition, education, inspiration, and collaboration. So now it's time to put this mission statement to work through today's session on tournament fighting, competition, and coaching. So with us today are 5 women from around the United States and the United Kingdom, each with their own earned experiences and insights in tournament competition and coaching. And we hope today that you leave with a feeling as though you learned something that you didn't know and that you're glad that you came. So I'd like to thank each panelist right now for sharing your time and your expertise, for supporting and fulfilling our mission statement. So for the past 4 Zooms, our moderator has been Heather Flessing. Today, however, we have Michelle Higgins, who I'll be introducing in just a little bit. Heather is here today, however. She's been behind the scenes putting together our schedule for today. She's pretty much the boss today, so we really do whatever she says. Thank you, Heather. With that, I'd like to read Heather's bio. Heather Flessing is a 4th degree black belt who began her Kenpo journey at Bob White's Karate Studio in Costa Mesa, California in 2010. She attended karate tournaments in Southern California and Nevada, achieving 1st place in sparring as well as forums in many of these tournaments. In addition to being a Kenpoist, she also trains in Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu and is a blue belt. Heather is the staging coordinator for our studio's charitable event tournament, which supports Royal Family Kids. She teaches children's classes at our studio, Bob White's Karate Studio, as well as adult sparring classes. Furthermore, she has led women's self-defense classes in an effort to share her knowledge with other women. Heather lives in Orange, California with her husband and her 3 cats. She is a reading interventions teacher at an elementary school in the nearby city of Fullerton, and she loves to teach. She also teaches college accounting classes at Cal State University, Long Beach. In addition to being a teacher, Heather is an avid team learner and has received her master's degree in both education and accountancy. Thank you, Heather, for everything that you do. So with that, I'd like to introduce to you Michelle Higgins, one of the members on our board of directors, and she is the moderator for this event. Michelle Higgins is a 2nd degree black belt and trains under Sean and Rebecca Knight at the Knight Method Kenpo in Tucson, Arizona. Michelle is passionate about encouraging women and girls to explore Kenpo and discover their potential as martial artists. She's held many self-defense seminars in the community, including at the YWCA, the Girl Scouts, and Dave Monathan Air Force Base. Michelle holds a 3rd degree black belt and is certified instructor in Tang Soo Do. She has participated in many local and regional tournaments, including the Battle in Seattle and the Battle of LA, and was the grand champion in women's sparring in 2013. She has a husband and 2 adult children, all of whom are also black belts. When Michelle is not training, she works at the University of Arizona as the Associate Director of Societal Impact, where she works to translate the expertise of researchers into policies, practices, and programs that benefit society. Michelle is also working on her PhD in educational psychology, exploring mathematics, doxa, in secondary education. And with that, I get the chance to turn this over to Michelle. Thank you so much, Michelle, and I'm turning this over to you.
Thank you, Barbara. I'm very excited about today's symposium. We have a wonderful lineup this afternoon highlighting Kenpo women's experiences with training for and participating in tournaments. On our panel today, we have Ashley Zachary, Charles Oka, Doreen DiRienzo, Pauline Ceremetis, and Sinead Byrne. But we would also like to know who else is here with us today. And I thought that we could do a quick waterfall chat drop. What that is you will put in your hometown and your state, but don't hit enter just yet. So go ahead and open up your chat and you can put in your hometown, your city, and your state. And I'll give us a countdown from 3 to 1. And soon as I hit, say 1, we'll all hit enter and we'll see everybody's home states and hometowns trickle down like a waterfall. So get ready. On the count, when I get to 1, we'll all hit enter. Ready? 3, 2, 1, go. Wow, that was really awesome. All right, you can actually save your chat and check out who's been here for this symposium. So as we were planning for our panelists, we found that several women had experiences around the same topic, but different perspectives to share. So for this symposium, we've paired up our guest panelists, and each pair will get the same question to respond to, but they'll do so separately. We've reserved some time for questions and answers at the end, so feel free to add your questions to the chat and I'll be monitoring them. However, we'll hold questions until the end of our panel. Also, please indicate if the question is for a particular panelist or just a general question. After the Q&A time, we hope you'll take a few moments to complete our short survey. Your responses are very important to us and help guide the next symposium. You can use your camera to scan a QR code or just copy down the link. We've also entered the link into the chat. Let's see. There we go. Yep. Or you can check out our Facebook page or our website to get the QR code or the link. We really want to hear back from you. So before we get started, I'd like to make a few introductions. I'll start with introducing the founder and leader of the Kenpo Women's Symposium, who just introduced me, Barbara White. Barb began her martial arts career in 1991 and is a 7th degree black belt and co-owner of Bob White's Karate Studio in Costa Mesa, California. I'd also like to introduce one of our board members and our communication and social media accounts manager, Denise Plowman. Denise is a 6th degree black belt from Boise, Idaho, who began her Kenpo training in 1994 and is part of the Advanced Kenpo Training System. Okay, we're ready to go. It is my great pleasure to introduce today's moderator, Ms. Jennifer Gibson. Jennifer is a 1st degree black belt who trains at Bob White's Karate School in Costa Mesa, California. She started with American Kenpo under Mr. Daniel Rodarte in Whittier, California, when she was in high school. After seeing a demo featuring a female black belt, Jennifer wanted to emulate her tough but feminine style. After an earthquake damaged Mr. Rodarte's studio, Jennifer dabbled in Shotokan and Taekwondo before discovering a Shaolin Kenpo studio in Long Beach, California, under Mr. Mike Cataline. Jennifer trained for 5 years under Mr. Cataline, reaching the level of green belt before the rigors of raising a young family became too hard of a schedule. 17 years later, Jennifer found Bob White's karate school and started again in American Kenpo in 2017. 5 years later, she received her black belt under Mr. White in March 2022. Congratulations. In 2021, as a brown belt, Jennifer won 2 divisions of tournament kata, traditional forms and creative forms, and is looking forward to competing in more tournaments in the future. As a college professor, Jennifer enjoys teaching philosophy and world religions and looks forward to also teaching Kenpo to the lower belt divisions. When not training in karate, Jennifer supplements her income by working as a private investigator, conducting surveillance and process service, as well as security and executive protection. She currently lives in Huntington Beach, California, with 2 of her 3 sons who are still attending college and their 2 cats. No one will get Jennifer to believe that Southern California is not the best place to live. Yep. Jennifer, the floor is all yours.
Hi, thank you for that. That was fun. I need my glasses here to see some things. It is my pleasure to introduce one of our first guests to speak in the symposium, Pauline Lightning Fast Sarametis. Pauline is a 25-year-old from Massachusetts. She has her Bachelor's of Science in Neuroscience and currently works as a direct care support behavioral specialist, helping adults 18 to 34 years old who have intellectual disabilities such as autism, Down syndrome, and ADHD. Pauline has been training in the martial arts since she was 13. She holds a first-degree black belt in Taekwondo from Personal Best Karate under Master Christopher Rappold. She also holds a third-degree black belt under Master Jeff Dukes Sr. and has the Ed Parker Frank Trejo lineage as a third-degree generation Kenpo black belt. She studied Kung Fu under Sifu Ron Lee, and he showed her techniques that were very effective in protecting herself. She is currently training under Mr. Dan Donfro at Dan Donfro World Class Kenpo Karate Academy in Dartmouth, Massachusetts, and hopes to earn a black belt in the future from his school. Pauline is someone who enjoys learning new techniques and skills in martial arts. In addition, Pauline competes on the NASCA and Crane circuits. She is a 5-time Forms National Champion and a 2-time Sparring Grand Champion. During the 2021 NASCA tournament season, she was ranked the #2 fighter for the 18 and up women's black belt light sparring on world and national rankings. For the 2021 Crane season, she took state, national, and Triple Crown champion in 18 and over women's black belt point sparring. She also took state and national champion in the 18 to 29 division women's black belt traditional forms. She will continue to compete in the NASCA and Crane circuits for the 2022 tournament season. One of Pauline's biggest goals for 2022 is to be ranked the #1 fighter in the world on the NASCA circuit for point and continuous sparring divisions. Pauline was selected to be on the team NMAC International in March 2022. Pauline qualified for the WKC USA Nationals and placed first in continuous sparring, first in point sparring, and first in Kenpo forms divisions. She will be representing Team USA in Ireland at the WKC World Championships next month in October 2022. Pauline hopes to model for Century Martial Arts and is an ambassador for Women's Venom. She was also featured in the 3rd edition magazine, Deadly Art of Survival, in March 2022. Pauline has trained with world-class champions such as Kathy Long, Benny the Jet Urquidez, Don the Dragon Wilson, Ray Mercer, Dana Abbott, Senior Master Huck Planas, Master Jeff Dukes, and Mr. Dan Donfro. She is an ambitious, positive, and talented young lady who is determined to accomplish her dreams in life. Welcome, Pauline.
Thank you for having me, Jennifer.
Sure. So tell me, what is your mindset going into your events, and what's your mindset during your event?
Yeah, so I have many mindsets during and after my tournament. So I would say my first big mindset is clearing my mind. So clearing my mind with any thoughts I have before I'm competing. So just clearing my mind and staying focused before I'm getting ready for my event. So before I'm getting ready for sparring, or if I'm getting ready for my forms division, just clear my mind as best as I can. I know we all, those who compete get butterflies or have a little bit of nerves before they compete, but clearing your mind as best as possible and staying calm and relaxed as best as you can would probably be, those are the two mindsets I have. And also another mindset that I have as well is my aggressiveness. So leading up to or before a tournament, my aggressiveness, so being powerful with my strikes when I'm doing my forms. So when I'm doing my Kenpo forms, I make sure that all my techniques are crisp and powerful, and all my strikes are powerful. And I like to have big circles, as we say in Kenpo. Big circles is the best. And also when I am sparring, I would say for sparring, when I'm scoring different points. So I like to use a hook round kick combination as well as a back fist reverse punch. So keeping that aggressiveness towards my opponent. And also to lead up to that, before I compete, I also listen to a variety of music, and that keeps me calm before I compete. I do like to, a lot of people that watch me at tournaments for sparring, I like to kind of pace up and down the area there, the mat, just to stay focused and ready leading up to fighting my opponent. I just have to get all my nerves out and just go up and down, just clear my mind. And I always kind of have to remind myself that just to myself, like my inner self, and just tell myself that I can do anything I set my mind to do. And I tell the students that I coach at the dojo, I just tell them that you all have to have a desire, a drive and determination, because if you don't have those things, a drive, desire, and determination, you're not going to be able to accomplish what you set out to accomplish. So I always tell my students that any students that I'm coaching for sparring, you have to have those things, those three things: drive, desire, and determination, leading up to the competition. And really in everyday life, you really should have that. And having a strong work ethic is so important. And those are really what I would, that's my advice. And those are my mindsets that I have before and after competition.
That's great, Pauline. Thank you for that.
Thank you.
So our next guest that we're having speak today is Ashley Sacre. Ashley is a 6th degree black belt in Oki-Ryu Kenpo and trains at the Don Rodriguez Karate Academy in Warwick, Rhode Island. Her instructors are Shihan Don Rodriguez and Shihan Christine Bannon Rodriguez. Her karate journey started at 8 years old when her grandfather gifted her with karate lessons for her birthday. She continues her training because she can't imagine a point in her life where her karate was not a part of it. She feels extremely lucky to be part of such a great and supportive school and hopes to continue to pass on the knowledge she has learned to her students. Aside from Kenpo, she also holds a 1st degree black belt in the American Open Sword System. She has competed primarily in the NASCA and Crane ratings organizations in traditional forms and weapons for over 20 years. She has won numerous grand championships, along with state, national, and overall titles in her respective divisions. Ashley lives in Portsmouth, Rhode Island, with her incredibly supportive husband, Matthew, and her rescue pup, Paisley. She is a financial quality assurance manager at Eligo Health Research and holds a bachelor's degree in biology. While karate is her lifelong passion, outside of the dojo, her hobbies include baking, reading countless books, and spending her free time with her family and friends. Welcome, Ashley.
Hi, thank you for having me.
Sure. So I'm going to ask you the same question. What is your mindset going into your event and during your event?
Yeah, so definitely a lot with what Pauline said is, staying focused and getting ready for your divisions are definitely something that is important to me. I definitely try to stay focused as well. As I've gotten older and have been competing for a long time, I've been competing almost, 25 years, almost the amount of time I've been in karate. So for me, the biggest thing now as I've gotten older is I just want to do the best I can. And I overall want to be happy with my performance. My instructors have always told me that and all of our students that compete on the team, that the day of your karate tournament is like your day off, right? You have done all of the prep work beforehand, whether you've practiced your forms or you're fighting. I haven't fought in competition in a really long time. I just do forms and weapons now, but it's a day off for us. We've done all the work in order to prep beforehand. So that is definitely the biggest thing I tell everybody is that's our day off. And, do the best you can and have fun. And to also, if it comes to a point where you're not having fun anymore and you're not enjoying it, maybe it's time to take a little bit of a step back. And, for me, you can ask anybody, I'm definitely a perfectionist. I always want to win. I always want to do and be perfect. But I, at the end of the day, have learned in all the years I've competed that I want to do the best I can. If I'm happy with my performance, maybe, the judges may have felt differently that day, but at the end of the day, I want to be happy with it. I want my students to see that I'm happy with my performance, because what I do and what they see is going to emulate with them doing their forms and weapons as well. And then for me also, I just want to make sure that I did my best job and that I was happy with what I did. Because at the end of the day, it's just all about making sure that I was comfortable with it. Because if I'm not having fun competing anymore, I really would have to reevaluate if I still wanted to do that. But my mindset has definitely changed a lot when I was earlier competing, being perfect and making sure everything was perfect all the time. And for now, that's like, as I've gotten older, I'm like, I just want to be the best I can, and I just want to have fun at the end of the day. Still got to get up and go to work the next day if a tournament, wasn't as successful as I would hope it would be, but that's okay. And, that tournament ends and you finish that day and be like, okay, time for the next one, time to keep working and time to, perfect those techniques and things like that, and just bring it for the next tournament and hope that you do better at the next tournament. Or if you do the same, it's okay. Just keep going and keep improving. Took me a really long time to understand that improvement is a good thing, and to keep improving and to show that maybe as you get further on, just to see the improvement that you've had from when you first started competing to what I have now is insane. So just keep going and always have fun. And that mindset for me it took me a really long time to understand that. And I do try to stress that with my students. Yes, I get it. Everybody wants to win. We're all competitive, but you still have to have fun and enjoy what you're doing, and also be supportive of your teammates and your fellow competitors as well. Those are the kind of the mindset I'm in at the end of the day. And I hope to continue that with all my tournaments.
I really like that idea of it being a day off.
Yes,
that's the day to have fun. And
they've always told us that. And I've definitely, as I've become more of an instructor and helping our students with their forms and weapons, and not so much fighting because I don't fight as much, but I've definitely showed them that, like our instructor said, it is a day off. You've put all the work in, just go out and have fun. And hopefully,
right.
You did the work. Hopefully the result is what you want. But if it's not, we just go back to the drawing board, forget about what happened at that tournament, and just focus on the next one.
I'm going to file that one away. I like that. Okay, so next I am going to pass it back to one of our board members, Denise Plowman.
Thank you. And thanks, Ashley. What a way to start this out. Our next panelist I want to introduce is Sinead Burns, and she's a 2nd degree black belt in Kenpo and a 6th Dan black belt in Bujinkan. Her current Kenpo instructor is Miss Jackie McVicker, and Bujinkan instructor is Mr. Mark Moore. Sinead began her martial arts journey in 2001 after attending her first Kenpo class in Dublin, Ireland. She fell in love with training, attending classes 4 times a week, competing at every tournament possible, and practicing every second she had to spare. Once she attained her first degree after a grueling test in the heat of Mexico in 2007, Sinead also began to train in the traditional art of Bujinkan, which has taken her to Japan a few times now to train with some of the grandmasters. Sinead competed locally and internationally for 10 years in Kenpo, as well as open style tournaments. She won many trophies and medals along the way, and 3 times she won grand champion. Though most would not believe it, competing terrifies Sinead. She's not competitive, but has always loved the rush of taking part. She then took a 10-year break from competing to grow her own club, Kenpo Dojo. In 2022, she took her first team of students to Malta to compete at the European Kenpo Karate Championships. There they had huge success, and Sinead went through more nerves and emotion than every tournament she ever did by herself put together. Sinead also taught her first seminar at such a big event, and as the only female instructor there, she chose a much misunderstood topic of Fight Like a Girl, which was well received by all in attendance. Sinead now lives in Gloucester, UK with her fiance and runs her dojo full time. Over the last 10 years, Sinead has worked in childcare and also as a sports development officer, coaching everything from gymnastics to golf. In 2019, she gave up her day job to run her own school full time. Teaching has always been Sinead's passion. She spent many years developing a child-friendly and fully inclusive syllabus, tailoring her martial arts to the person instead of making the person fit her martial arts. Regardless of age, gender, additional needs, or ability, there will be a way for the students at her dojo to take part and feel included while progressing at their own rate. Sinead's other hobbies include traveling, doing arts and crafts, and going to kickboxing classes. However, she can often be found planning lessons, increasing her skills, or creating fun events. She has loved every piece of her journey so far over the past 21 years. So welcome, Sinead.
Thank you for having me, Denise.
The question we have for you today is, how do you prepare your team for a tournament?
So basically, I'm quite new to sort of preparing a team for a tournament. As you mentioned in my bio, I took a team to Malta this year. So I kind of only had my own personal experiences as a competitor to sort of guide me through that. So I tried to focus on all the things I kind of wish I knew when I started competing. I have a lot of students with additional needs, and they love detail, and they love when I teach regularly or plan that there's lots of details sort of included in that. And the things that most of us wouldn't think about, like what's the arena going to look like? So can I show them some pictures in advance to sort of ease the nerves so they can sort of have a visual of what that's going to look like when they get there, and sort of how competition works. Where are you going to sit when you get there? What do you have to say when you stand up and introduce yourself on the competition floor? How the divisions will be called out, and all things like that. Or even little things like how many people will be there. Do they have to expect, 50 people in the audience, or is it going to be 1,000 people? So they can manage that sort of fear or sort of anxiousness around it. I find that it's always, when you're preparing a team, it's always a good idea to ask your students in advance the things that worry them and sort of encourage their questions, no matter how silly those questions might feel to them. I had a student once who was panicking because they weren't sure whether a tournament would have a toilet there, which for most of us would be a silly thing to sort of think, well, of course they'd have a toilet. But by being able to hear that question from the student, it then eased their mind to be able to then focus on their competition. I kind of feel like the more questions you can answer in advance, the more at ease your students will then be. And then in turn, they can focus on the tournament itself and the competition side of things. I tend to not focus on team so much in the beginning of training. And when students sign up to compete, first I focus on each student as an individual, because in order to sort of have a team, you need each person within that to sort of feel like they deserve to be there and be on that team and to be the best that they can be as an individual. And that can sort of include things like just helping them to plan out their practice schedules for sort of like their chosen divisions outside of class time, because they all have, kids these days have some busier schedules than some of us adults, to sort of help them overcome their own obstacles or fears in whatever way that may look, but on a very individual basis. And then, of course, drilling just the forms and everything else, but also looking at how do you bow? How do you sort of introduce yourself? How should you hold your head confidently when you're speaking to the judges? And even if you're showing on the outside that sort of air of confidence, even though on the inside you might be screaming sort of with the nerves, I try and teach them that being nervous is perfectly fine. And then through this, I try and build up a solid team who then will work together and know sort of how each other ticks, and that they'll have each other's back sort of throughout it. And they practice sort of consistently every week, because being prepared means your muscle memory can take over on the competition floor and you don't have to think. You can almost go into autopilot on the day. One of the things I did recently for my team was I recorded each of them on their first session as part of the team. And then a few months down the road, I recorded them again and then showed them both videos so that they could see for themselves that sort of improvement that they had made so far. Because a lot of the time, as instructors, we can see those improvements, but the students don't feel it. And unlike other sports like swimming, where you're just trying to beat a time, so you know if you've gone faster, oh, I got better. Sometimes students can't feel that quite so much. So having that sort of visual really sort of helped a lot of the children on the team. And then I put together different things like demonstration nights where they sort of invite all their family and friends, which puts quite a lot of pressure on them. But it's it's by doing this, it helps them get over that nerve, all those nerves that they have, really support each other sort of throughout it, and then give them that confidence that when they stand up on a competition floor, it doesn't feel so daunting anymore to them. But the biggest thing I think I do when I'm preparing a team for a tournament is to just get them excited about the whole picture. I like to put a lot of focus, although there's always going to be competitive people on that team who really want to win, I put a lot of focus and a lot of time into the excitement of how much they're going to meet new people and make new friends sort of along the way, traveling to new and exciting places and different countries. We recently had a child who had never been on an airplane before that went away, so like what an amazing adventure for them. And just having fun and making memories, and then always looking at the positive experiences. In any tournament, you're always going to have negatives, you're always going to have things you want to work on, but really focusing on the positives and really bring that to the forefront of it, and to just live in it and enjoy the moment. I always feel that trophies and medals are great, and we live them in that moment of sort of receiving them, but the memories that we all make at these events all over the world are what you remember in the long time, which I think bonds a team together and in turn makes for great team spirit and really sort of prepares them for all the tournaments ahead. So that's kind of how I prepare a team.
That's awesome, Sinead. Thank you for sharing that. Before we go on to the next the next panelist, wanted to remind everybody, if you have any questions, put them in the chat box so that we can start to gather those up for the end of our session here. So our next guest is probably well known to everybody, is Miss Doreen DiRenzio, who began her martial arts training in April of 1973. And she attained the rank of first-degree black belt in April of 1977. Currently, Doreen holds the rank of 10th degree black belt in Ed Parker's American Kenpo Karate. She is the highest ranked female Ed Parker black belt in the world, and she is one of the 3 co-founders of the Kenpo International, an organization that has schools and members all over the world. She received her BS in physical education from the Northeastern University in June of 1979. Unable to find a teaching job, she opened up a small karate studio, Revere Karate Academy, on Squire Road in Revere, Massachusetts, on February 4th, 1980. The karate studio enrollment grew so rapidly, by the end of the first year, Revere Karate Academy had to find a bigger home. To date, Revere Karate Academy has taught over 35,000 students. Doreen has also earned a Master's of Education in Physical Education and a Certificate of Advanced Graduate Studies in Educational Leadership. Doreen was an active tournament fighter for many years. She was one of the 8 women selected for the Atlantic World Karate Team, the first professional team which included women. Now in her 5th decade as a teacher and a practitioner of Kenpo, Doreen utilizes her knowledge and skills in tournament fighting to coach many students in their endeavors as tournament fighters. So welcome, Doreen.
Denise.
The question we have for you is, how do you prepare your team for a tournament?
Well, the first thing that I would say is that it goes I like to go backwards, like the day of the tournament, what do you want to be ready? You know, when you get on that line, what do you want to work for you? Okay, when you get out to perform your kata, what do you want to be, there for you? So it goes back to those things. You want your skills to be sharp. You want your conditioning to be solid. If you're a fighter like me, for example, I used to weight train. I still weight train because I wanted my muscles to, be as strong as they possibly could. And those of you that, compete in kata, don't underestimate the value of cardiovascular conditioning, because what happens when you get on the line and your adrenaline starts rushing, that your energy level can get sucked right out of you immediately. So being cardiovascularly fit is really important. So how do we prepare our team? Like we compete a lot on an international level. So when we have a target date, we start off with extra team practices and make them work their forms, their self-defense, and of course their sparring. And a lot like the ladies have said prior, is that a lot of it has to do with your mindset. If you prepare yourself by conditioning and you prepare yourself by practicing, and that your skill levels are ready, then whatever happens on the line happens. Everybody wants to win. Nobody goes into a competition just to say, oh, it's okay if I lose. Nobody does. But the fact is that sometimes when you lose, that's when you get those best lessons. You say, oh, I should have blocked. Oh, I should have moved. Oh, you know, I could have thrown my side kick a little stronger in my form, you know, whatever that may be. One of the things I remember people used to ask me all the time, do you fight every day? Do I spar every day? And the answer to that was no. I focus more on, personally, I focused more on conditioning my body. I hit the gym, I ran, and I did my karate training. I sparred once a week. But my secret weapon was always I sparred with my little kids because you have to have incredible control, and you have zero read time. That's such an essential quality, you know, like people can prepare your skill, you know, their skills, but being able to read what's coming at you and being able to respond, and then being able to do that with an amazing control. When you fight someone bigger, it was actually easier, believe it or not. So I did that a lot, but honestly, it's more, I think, in the preparation. Get to class, get to training. Those are the things that will make your performance at any tournament, you know, be successful. The other thing too, you know, mindset, you know, you have to go in there present saying, I'm going to just do my best. Whatever comes out, it comes out. And also do your coaching at the studio. I believe in that. I don't like to walk in the ring and coach a student 2 seconds before they're about to do something, maybe a minor adjustment. But because I see a lot of people walking in and sometimes will say, oh, you should do this, you should, you know, and that's filling the student's head up with stuff that they're maybe not prepared to do. You shouldn't make any adjustments that they haven't already practiced, because that can, you know, backfire on you as well. But all in all, I would say my biggest piece of advice is do your homework, which is your conditioning, which is your training, and the practicing of the skills that you want, you know, to be present for you the day of the competition.
Thanks, Doreen. At this point, I'm going to pass it back over to Barbara.
I'm on. Thank you, Doreen, so much for all the support you've given throughout the years. Doreen was in our first Kenpo Symposium live at the IKC in 2014. She's always been here to support, and I really appreciate your insight and being here, Doreen. At this time, I have the pleasure to introduce a truly wonderful woman, also a friend, Cheryl Oka. Cheryl Oka is a 9th degree black belt at Technical Kenpo organization in Pearl City, Hawaii. She began her martial arts lifestyle in 1973, training in traditional Chinese Kenpo. Her passion for sports drove her to step into the martial arts training at the neighborhood dojo, where all training was done on a cement surface. She enjoyed training in self-defense, weapons, forms, and sparring. Back in the 1970s, sparring without gear was the norm, and groin shots and thigh kicks were the go-to-getters. She continued her training and teaching through the decades and began enlarging her territory by embarking in Tang Soo Do in the early 1990s. And that's where she met her husband, Ron Pinnell, and has earned her 5th degree in the Ron Pinnell Karate Academy system. Together, they continue to train and compete on the national circuit. They own Team League of Angels, which is nationally sponsored by fighters with athletes from California, Reno, North Carolina, Texas, Hawaii, Prague, and Canada. Ron and Cheryl also run a martial arts ministry at New Hope, Oahu. Their ministry is their passion, and together they serve the community teaching martial arts with an emphasis in tournament competition and sharing the word of God. So Cheryl, thank you for joining. So we know that you compete on teams and you have the tournament circuit and that you own a team or coach a team. But I'm wondering if you could be a little bit more detailed and elaborate in what it's like having a team that goes on the circuit, what it's like competing on the circuit. Just give us a little bit more of your insight into it.
Thank you.
Well, it's truly a blessing to be able to compete at my age. I can see that things have changed over the decades. I started in the 70s only competing in Hawaii. And then in the 80s, we moved to competing in NBL. And now our team, we compete in NASCA as well as the league and in WACO. So it's really good because we have people from different parts of the world, but we get together on Zoom to do team training. We also get together in California with our coach, Jack Felton, and we have team camps. So I think all of those things help to bring us closer together. We learn from each other. And honestly, to me, I enjoy the training a lot more than the competition. It's a time for fellowship. It's a time where we can encourage one another. And it's just an amazing time to be able to spend with the people on our team. I think the thing is that it doesn't matter what tournament it is or what circuit it's in, we still go about training for it as best as we can. We always give it our best effort. We're always there pushing one another to do, the best that we can. And in fact, I think probably maybe our toughest competition comes within practice when we're training together, pushing each other to move up a notch and to get better, because we really have each other's back and we want to help our teammates get better. And we're not only there for what goes on the mat, we're there for each other for what goes on off the mat to help each other, because, there are a lot of struggles in life and we go through different seasons. So we're just there to pick each other up and to help encourage one another. But the tournament circuits are an awesome place, to practice our skills, to meet new people, and also to just be able to enjoy time together as a team.
Thank you, Cheryl. You used the word encouragement, and I think that's just one of the most important things that we can do in life is to encourage other people, because by then at doing that, they get a chance to encourage others, and it's just passing goodwill. So thank you for what you do, and thank you for your answer.
Thank you.
So, Pauline.
Hello. Hi, Barbara. How are you?
I'm good, Pauline. Thank you for your answer as well. I guess it's awesome. It's really great to hear. Now, I know that you are also involved in competition and the tournament circuit. Can you elaborate or just tell us about your experience and what it's done for you?
Yeah, so it's been an amazing year. It really has. 2022 has been one of the biggest years for me, and I'm really blessed with many opportunities. And I compete on the NASCA circuit primarily. I've been competing on the NASCA circuit for 2 years now. I've competed on the crane circuit for 8 years. So I've competed since 2014 on the crane circuit, and then I also compete on the WACO fighting circuit as well. And I've been competing on that circuit for 2 years as well. And like Jennifer had said in my bio, I am on Team NMAC International. So there are people from all over the world on my team. We have people ranging from Canada, the US, Mexico, Guatemala, United Arab Emirates, and the list goes on. There's a lot of different countries on my team, and I'm blessed to get the call. I got the call to be on Team NMAC International in March of this year, and blessed to be on this team. Michael Paletti is the coach for the team, and I'm always really being supportive of other, all my teammates and cheering everyone on at these different tournaments. And, leading up to the tournament, I'm just conditioning my body to the full max and doing different cardio exercises. I bike, I run, I do a lot of speed drills on the Wave Masters. my instructor, Mr. Dan Dompro, can attest to this. Do a lot of stair climbing, lots of kicking drills before I get as much training I can, as much training I can before my class. And I also admire people like Kathy Long and Benny the Jet, because they're two people that I really admire, and those are two people I get my competitive fighting skills from. And I just tested, also to mention to everyone, I just tested for my 4th degree black belt with Master Jeff Dukes and his fighting system, and I'm waiting on the results, but I also get my competitive fighting skills from him, not only Kathy Long and Benny the Jet, but from him as well. And that drive and determination, he pushes me every day to be the best I can. And those are some people that really push me to the max, I would say. And I also, just to talk about some of the major tournaments this year, I did really well at the Battle of Atlanta this year in June. I came in 1st place in women's Kenpo forms, so that was a really big win for me. Came in 2nd in continuous sparring as well. And then to top it off, in August, this past August, the Long Beach Internationals, which was my first time competing there. And I was able to come out with, I was able to win grand champion in the women's open weight sparring, and came in 1st in continuous sparring. So I've had some major wins this year, and I'm just blessed to know the people that I know. And I want to leave everyone with a quote to close here. So the quote is, if you want to compete, train. If you want to win, train harder. The harder you train, the more wins you get. To perform like a champion, you must practice and think like one. Your next opponent is training harder than you. So I always take this quote into consideration every tournament, and when I'm preparing for each tournament, and it's a very meaningful quote to me. Thank you, Barbara.
Pauline, thank you so much. It's so, you have such history in your 25-year lifespan so far. You've got such a lot of history and wisdom, and it's really a pleasure hearing the joy that you have expressing your martial arts. So thank you.
Thank you.
You're welcome. So at this time, I'm going to pass this on to Denise Plowman.
Thanks, Barbara. And I'm just amazed at all of the stories that I'm hearing today. I mean, it's just fascinating. And kind of a common theme that I heard throughout is, where the nerves are. And so I have a couple of questions or a question for Ashley and Sinead, and we're going to start with Ashley first. But Ashley, can you tell us, how do you deal with the nerves in those situations?
Yeah, so my nerves have definitely changed over the years. Definitely when I was first starting and first competing, I'd get really nervous before I would start my forms, my weapons divisions. Again, it goes back to that whole being a perfectionist and getting everything, making sure everything's perfect all the time. And then the whole same thing, to going back to what I said before, is just doing the best I can is what I want to do now moving forward. But it's kind of funny, my nerves now are all before the tournament. So once I get to where I'm going for the tournament, I'm totally fine. I know I'm there, I'm on time, everything like that. I'm good. It's everything that's before that I tend to be nervous about. So I said in my bio, I have a very supportive husband. I really do, because the day of a tournament, I set 3 alarms. I set my phone, I make him put one on, and I put another one just in case, just to make sure that I am getting up for my divisions. For my tournament, I usually do have to get up pretty early, especially for ones that, have a couple hours of a drive from where I live. I do have to get up early for those. So set a lot of alarms. Some of my local tournaments, even though I'm an adult, my mom still comes with me to those, because she likes to still watch me compete and see some of my teammates that she doesn't get to see as often as she did when she would bring me to class when I was a kid. So she's usually the person that drives me to tournaments for those. But I'm definitely the early bird. I always, to help me with my nerves, get to the competition with plenty of time. For me, plenty of time means I get there on time, I find my ring, I look where the judges are going to be in relation to where I have to compete. I always run through my forms a couple times. I don't do them in the intensity or the level that I would do them to compete, just because I don't want to overexert myself. I don't want to wear myself out. Just want to get a feel of where I'm going to be in position for the ring and everything like that. Like I said, I get there really early. I do a lot of stretching beforehand, forms and weapons, you know, a lot of stretching, a lot of keeping my body loose, keeping my muscles loose, keeping my mind clear of everything as well. Another big thing, I know a lot of people might not do this, but I do eat breakfast before a tournament. Even if it's something small, just like granola bar, a piece of fruit, something like that, I want something in my stomach before I compete. So I definitely do those rituals beforehand. And yeah, my anxiety has definitely decreased significantly when I've just determined I'm just going to have fun and just do the best I can that day. And I always enjoy watching my fellow teammates compete. Being an instructor and watching my students compete too gives me a lot of joy now. To see how some of my students have come from the beginning of this year to now as an instructor is amazing. And to know that I've been a part of that really helps me decrease my nerves as well, because I'm so focused on making sure they're at their ring, they understand what's happening, that my nerves kind of go away, because I've done this so many times and somebody's looking to me for advice. So I have to kind of put whatever I'm worrying about aside because somebody else needs me right now. So that kind of makes me not get as nervous anymore, because I'm making sure my students are ready to go at their rings. And that's the biggest thing my instructors have told me: do not miss your ring. That's probably like the number one cardinal sin in tournament, is don't miss your ring, be at your ring when you're supposed to be. And I almost broke that rule at the Amerikick tournament in August, one of the NASCAR tournaments. They moved my ring without telling me, and they usually alert us on our phones. We have text messaging, and my name was being called at the ring and I was not there because we were all at the other ring where they assigned us. So one of my fellow competitors thankfully ran over. She said, "Ashley, you're getting called over there." And I ran with my oar, the weapon I was competing in, because it's my weapon I use, ran halfway across the way. And thankfully they did not start my division. So I almost broke my own rule of not missing my division. In 25 years of competing, I can still say I have never missed my division, because that's my biggest fear. And that's why I do all these prep things before I compete, you know, the 3 alarms, making sure I'm early. I get my bag ready before a tournament. Everything's all set to go. So I can literally just get up and go. I don't have to worry about doing 25 other things because I've done everything beforehand, just being prepared. Because for me, that decreases my anxiety. And, you know, those are little quirks I have, but I'm not going to change. I'm always going to be early for everything. It's just who I am as a person. But I hope that I can continue to instill those same values in my students, and none of my students have missed their divisions yet either. So that's a good thing.
Awesome. Thanks, Ashley. So Sinead, speaking of nerves, kind of apropos to what we were talking about earlier, as you were nervous about doing this. So how did you prepare for this or your tournament? How do you deal with your nerves?
I think I'm a nervous person. Anyone who knows me knows I'm constantly nervous. I think the easiest way to describe how I deal with it is kind of go back to the beginning. So when I was quite young, I was never a kid for like winning anything, because my nerves always got the better of me. I was super shy, I was anxious. And then I attended my first martial arts tournament, and I was around probably about 11 years old. And I remember sitting on the floor waiting for my forms to start. I had no clue what to say. I was absolutely terrified. My whole body was physically shaking with the nerves. And I remember looking to this girl to my right and sort of really like looking for information from her and asking her, "Oh my God, what are they saying? They're walking up to the judges and they're saying something. I don't know what they're saying." And I remember this girl, real sort of blasé, sort of telling me, "Oh, you just have to say your name and where you're from and what your form is and who your instructor is and ask where you begin. Then you do your salutation." And I remember feeling completely overwhelmed by it. And then sitting there terrified that my name was going to be called next. Eventually I got up and I probably did short form 1 or something. I think I would have only been a white belt. And I remember doing it and messing up. I think I called myself the wrong name. My nerves just completely got the better of me. But when I stepped back off the floor, I watched the next girl stand up, and from my memory, she did long form 1. And I remember just being in complete awe of how amazing she did, from just how she walked out on the floor to how she then performed her form. And all I could think about was, I just want to do it like her next time. And I wasn't really focused on winning anything, because I was never one to win, but I just wanted to do it better. So I just got into practicing every single day. Any moment I had to spare. My parents were always sick of me doing forms in the middle of the grocery aisles when they went shopping. And then until the next tournament came around, I was terrified again. I didn't sleep the night before. I couldn't eat breakfast in the morning. I just felt so sick, and I was just shaking on the inside, on the outside. But the only thing that was different was I knew what I had to say, and I knew I'd practiced my forms a million times. And I remember my name being called and walking up confidently on the outside, but absolutely terrified and just screaming on the inside with nerves. I was shaking, my voice was trembling as I introduced myself. But it was like the weirdest thing. Once I said, "May I begin?" and I started my form, it was like I was a completely different person. I didn't have to think. My form just came out. I just gave it everything I had. And it was just this new feeling of complete calmness I'd never ever experienced sort of in my life. And when my form ended and I sat back down, I got all shaky again, and I couldn't control that shake. And then I remember as they cheered and called out all the winners of that tournament, they called out third place, second place, and everyone was standing up, and I'm sort of cheering along, and they called out first. And I remember looking to my left and my right thinking, oh, this is really strange, and nobody's standing up. And I realized it was my name they were calling, and I just couldn't believe it. I'd never sort of won anything. And there I was, suddenly stood on top of a podium as a yellow belt with this huge trophy. And my instructor at the time, Mr. Ward, stood in front taking a photograph. And it was like this unbelievable feeling that I've never ever experienced. But it wasn't the winning that really meant that to me. I was just so in awe of the fact that I had somehow managed to keep my nerves and sort of keep calm and sort of under control to be able to do that in front of a crowd. And sort of over the years, I've never put any pressure on myself to win at tournaments, but I've never been worried if I lost either, because I realized that winning for me is always like a heavy stress to sort of carry. But with my goal always being to just be better than I was last time, and then to brace those nerves, knowing that I'd sort of have that moment of calm from being so well practiced and prepared, that I learned that being nervous is not necessarily a bad thing. And even now as an adult, I'm exactly the same. I'm always nervous. I'm always anxious about things, but it's those nerves that force me to keep going and to keep improving. So I'm not really looking to get rid of those nerves or to deal with them in a way, because it's those nerves that sort of have shaped me into the martial artist that I am today. So that's kind of how I not really deal with my nerves. Thank you, Denise.
Thanks, Sinead. All right, so I am now going to hand this over back to Jennifer.
Thank you, Denise. So we have a couple of really seasoned fighters in our panel today, Doreen and Charles. I wanted to ask the two of you, how have tournaments changed over the years from the 60s and 70s? Have they evolved? How have they evolved?
May I just take 1 minute and talk about nerves? Okay.
Please.
Okay. So first of all, everything everyone said is 100% great, accurate. Be prepared, all of the things that the girls were talking about. But one thing that I like to add is that physiologically, what happens to your body when it senses stress is you get this supercharge of glucose through your whole body, which makes you tremble, right? And it's a natural thing. And the kids will sometimes cry because they don't know what that feeling is. And I just tell them it's their body getting ready. So when you feel that attack of nerves, for me, I used to get it so bad that I would almost upchuck, and if I didn't have that feeling, I wasn't ready. And just, I'm sorry, I can't remember the second girl, Ashley, I believe it was, that said, actually, Sinead that said, once she started the form, everything went away. That's exactly what will happen, is that once you fight, once the referee says go, all that adrenaline gets let loose into your body. So that's kind of another thing to consider, that the physiological change that goes through your body during stress. Okay. Sorry. I just had to say that. Okay. All right.
Always appreciate your input on things like that. And then that goes to the next question. How have tournaments changed and evolved since the 60s and 70s, when the two of you were doing your thing, first starting doing your thing?
Well, Shar, would you like to go first, since I just hogged up some of the time? I'm sorry.
That's okay. Well, in the 70s, the target areas were different, especially here in Hawaii. So the groin was a point, kidney shots were illegal, and then kicks to the thighs were a point, but it only counted if you were able to kick hard enough to buckle their legs.
Oh.
How about you, Dirk?
Yeah, pretty much the same. We didn't have kicks to the thigh, but to me, like the groin kick, when they took that away, I was so disappointed because I didn't have to pick my foot up very far to score a point. But yeah, we could kick to the groin. I didn't have any equipment. My parents, made me wear a mouthpiece because I had just gotten my braces off. So they made me, but none of that was required. All you went to a karate tournament with was a uniform. I think one of the questions in the chats were, did you ever get nervous being bumped up a level? And for me, I never got bumped up a level because as a white belt, I had to compete against brown and black belts. It was just women. There were only 6 divisions. There were white, green, brown, black men, form and fighting. Kids, 14 and under were kids, and women, form and fighting. So I can remember going to tournaments where they had 100 white belts, in one division and then the tournaments weren't so frequent. There weren't so many sanctioning organizations. There weren't so many, I know when I hosted a tournament here in Revere, Mass, I had almost 200 divisions. It's crazy, like how much you break down, 7 and under, 5 and under, it's just white belts, green belts, and it's just like you have all these different categories, so it's unlikely to get more than 20 people in a division, because back then, right, I remember fighting 30, 40 women in a division, like I said, white to brown belt. So that's a big change. The other thing was the center referee had full autonomy, like they could, if the 2 corner judges thought you scored a point and the center referee didn't want you to get that point, they go, no point. Now it has to be a majority pretty much. So that was another thing that was pretty different. Anything that I left out, Shar?
Well, the cost to enter a tournament has changed over the years. And frequently in Hawaii, yes, it was $5 to enter,
Wow.
but there are as many divisions as you want. And I think there's also still today a difference between the Hawaii and the mainland tournaments. In general, in Hawaii, martial arts is not run as a business. Very, very small percentage is it run as a business. Most martial arts places, especially Kenpo places, work out of a school cafeteria or a parks and recreation area. And the instructors and school owners have other jobs and they just teach it, like they just teach part-time. So here in Hawaii, it's still that martial arts teaching as well as the tournaments are to serve the community. So it's not run for profit. Like I know Mr. and Mrs. White do the Royal Family Kids, but here in Hawaii, most of the tournaments are run just to give the athletes an opportunity to have a venue, a place to perform and to get together. And here in Hawaii, it's a total, football games, you have tailgate parties. It's the same thing. After a tournament, the schools are all together, they're eating. It's a big picnic is what it is. So I think that's a difference. That hasn't changed in Hawaii from the 70s to now. That still goes on. The other difference is the venue, because I know back in the 80s, in the mainland, when I was in NBL, it was at high school gyms and stuff. Whereas now I see more NASCA, it's at a hotel or a convention center. Do you see that also, Darlene, the venues and things?
Yeah, pretty much, it used to be, in a church hall or a small elementary school gymnasium. And now you look for these big venues that can, service, hundreds and hundreds. Some of the larger tournaments, they attract 1,000 competitors and they have to have that kind of a venue. Another thing that I know some promoters are doing is they're having their main tournament, but then they'll have we're going to have a Chinese tournament in the same venue where they'll dedicate maybe an area just so a different organization. So you might have multiple tournaments going in these big convention centers because they are really expensive, which is why the cost of everything is gone up, skyrocketed. So, but that's another thing that they do. And now with the Uventex and some of the other, digital platforms that are out there, they've cut down the length of time that a tournament can take, which is, that's another thing. I mean, we used to do everything in our head and by hand. So like, if there were 130 competitors, well, you had to know how to chart, how many buys would that be? And how many people would fight the first round? Like you had to calculate all that. Now everything's done, for you, which is much better. So anyway, so that's another big change. That, to me, watching that change is crazy because, I come from the old school and we did it all in our head. And now this, like I said, these new, computerized electronic platforms are I find them to be amazing. So I'm still learning more about them as well.
Well, if you want a really good organizer for a tournament, we've got our own Heather Flessing here, who's quite the master at putting together an organized tournament.
Well, that I'm very good at, honestly, because I've done 20, 30 different ones. But it's like with these platforms, they take what you can do in your head and they put it into a concise formula, and it even cuts down the amount of time even more than I could do it. I started coordinating the the internationals in Long Beach for Mrs. Parker after Mr. Parker passed away. And I cut down hours from the tournament because I was so structured and organized at the way I did everything. And to the point where my first IKC, the last fight went off at 1 a.m., 1 a.m., not p.m., a.m. And when I took over that part of it, I cut down 6-7 hours off of that. So, wow. But even with Uventex, they do it even better. So it's just crazy. And I know there's other platforms out there. So.
Well, good. Well, thank you, ladies, for those great responses. It's time to turn things over to Michelle for our Q&A time.
Wonderful. So we've gotten a few questions. If you have other questions, feel free to put them in the chat. This first question is for Pauline. A listener or an attendee would like to know what type of music you listen to help your mindset. Can you talk a little bit about that?
Yes. So I listen to kind of a variety of music. I listen to country music. Kind of soothes me. I also listen to music like Eye of the Tiger or Rocky for sparring. So those are the songs that kind of, get me going in terms of when I'm about to fight. But I listen to a lot of country music before I compete in my forms divisions. But in terms of fighting, it's more the Eye of the Tiger, Rocky to get me pumped up and ready to go. So thank you to whoever asked the question.
Yeah, thank you. That's great for sharing that with us. The next question is for Ashley. Did you participate in virtual competitions during the pandemic?
Yes, I did quite a few of the virtual tournaments during the pandemic. So any NASCA one that was virtual, any Crane ones that we had as well were virtual. I did all of those. And that was certainly an experience I don't think I would have ever done, obviously, if the pandemic didn't happen. So the way it was formatted was we had to submit recordings, and each recording had to be different. So they told us, most of the forms I do are the same. I do an OR form for my weapons, and I do a Shotokan form for my forms. And then for Kenpo, I do a Kenpo form as well. I wasn't doing Kenpo during the pandemic. I just started doing the Kenpo division this year in NASCA. But when I did the forms, we had to send in our recordings, and they had to be a unique recording. I couldn't use a recording from a previous one that I submitted. So again, back to that supportive husband, he was the one that had to record all of my videos. So the first one, I went to the dojo and did record it. And then, as the pandemic and the restrictions got more and more, I did some in my parents' backyard because their yard was a little flatter than my yard. My yard tends to be a little rockier here in the Northeast, so it was very uncomfortable. And then I got to a point where I used my dad's a member of a Portuguese club. I used their dance floor as the place to record. So that I used that for a long time. So it'd be kind of funny when if there were people there, they could hear me like doing my form upstairs and like my feet banging. So it was definitely an experience for them. But so similar to what you would do in a tournament, I would still have to say who I was, my name. What was different was I had to say what tournament it was for. So if it was for the Ocean State Grand Nationals, I would have had to say the tournament name as well as the date of the recording. So in order to show the recording, they said, well, hold something that has the date on it, like a newspaper or something like that. I don't read the newspaper, I'm sorry. So I just used my cell phone. So my husband had my cell phone and he recorded my videos on his cell phone so they could see the date to prove that it was a unique recording. It wasn't something I had recycled or used again. And then I did my form and I would then, most of them were done with Uventex. So I went into Uventex and registered like I would for any NASCA or crane tournament. And instead of just registering, I would have uploaded my videos there for the judges to review. So the benefit I found was if I messed up, I could redo it as many times as I wanted to make sure it was perfect. So that was one benefit. Could do it as many times. And even if I submitted the tournament or my videos for the tournament, as long as it was before the date of the tournament, I could have gone back in and resubmitted it. So if I didn't like it, I could have gone in and done that. So I did find that was one benefit. The interesting thing was if I won first and I went into the grands, they used the same video. So I thought that was, obviously that's what they had to do because that was what we did and that's what we were working with. But, when you do grands, usually you just go in and you do your form again. And that was interesting to see them do that. But it was definitely an experience and I was still glad I was able to still compete. Yes, I didn't have to do all the traveling and, getting up really early in the morning or something like that, but it was still kept me sharp, still kept me being able to practice. I thankfully have some place in my house where I can practice. I can't do a full form in the room, but I can practice bits and pieces, went outside when I did need to practice. So I'm still glad that I was still able to compete during the pandemic, even though we couldn't travel anywhere. So I'm still fortunate that we could still do that.
Wow. I have a follow-up question. Did you have a chance to watch in real time the judges watching your video? Like, was that something that you could see?
I'm not sure. So because I didn't help out with the judging. So I do know I have friends that were judges and they would just go in and watch the videos. And then from there, they scored them that way. So like I have one friend that judges, he's like, yeah, I just watched them on my couch. I just went in. You had to go in at a certain amount of time. You had to do it. So I don't know if they had a live portion for that. I just know you had to watch your videos and then they scored them that way. And then from there, they would rewatch the grands again, because obviously for grands divisions are coming together from different places. So I'm not sure. I don't think it was live. It was just a recording, which that I know for the pandemic, when they were starting to open things back up again, they were going to try to see if they could have people, virtually compete as well. And like, it's not really fair for the people that are live at a tournament. If we mess up, yeah, we mess up, that's on us. But if somebody recorded their recording and messed up, they could have just resubmitted it multiple times. So that logistically just didn't work out. So maybe sometime in the future they'll figure that out. But yeah, it wasn't live. It was I would just log in the afternoon just to see how I did.
Yeah.
Which is weird. Tournaments going on, but you're at home, not doing anything.
Wonderful. Thank you so much for answering that question.
No problem.
Okay. The next question is for Denise. Over the years, coming up through the ranks and grades, have you found that the competition gets harder in either katas or sparring?
I think the talent over the years has definitely improved, I think, with all sports in general, just because there is a lot more out there to help you improve in all of your skill levels as you're doing that. It's been a while since I have competed, but I can say that if I go back and watch some old footage from some old tournaments and I do a comparison, I think the athletic ability of people out there now has gotten a lot better just because of sports medicine and everything that comes with that. So I think to a degree that it has, yes. And I think it always will, because that's just the progression of things. So yeah, I think so.
Wonderful.
It'd be interesting to hear some of those that are actively participating in tournaments now, if there's anybody else that would like to answer it and what their thoughts on that are as well, since I have kind of been out of the tournaments for a while.
Wonderful. Sure. If anybody wants to.
I would agree with Denise that the skill level of the athletes has increased, as in every other sport. And I think what happens is it's like, you know, once you set the bar higher, then everybody aims for that bar. And once they get there, then they aim the bar higher. And that's what you're seeing. It's like the skill level is just absolutely incredible. The karate athletes. I mean, I competed in the time when like guys like Nasty Anderson and Billy Blanks were coming up, and Billy Blanks set the bar. Nasty Anderson was like the master, the ring master. He knew how to orchestrate a fight. Just watching those guys was just being part of that team. It was an amazing thing. But every next 10 years or so, you know, you see the next generation. You know, if you watch some of the old, you know, karate movies, like you say, oh my God, like the skill level is just crazy off the charts, much better now. So I would agree with her on that.
Excellent. And Doreen, you might as well just stay with us because this next question is for you. Do you wish competition was like it was back in the 60s and 70s, or do you like the way it has changed to be the way it is now?
That's kind of a double-edged sword to answer, because I like the evolution. I love watching the improvement in skills. I love the tournaments run more smoothly and efficiently so that you don't have to make it an all-day event, especially when you have young kids. But what I do wish that was still present was the honor and dignity and the decorum that the competitors had back then. We wouldn't think twice. We wouldn't think once about speaking back to a referee or a black belt. Our teacher would be on us faster than we could get thrown out. And I think that's sort of what I wish was still present. And even as a retired high school teacher, I can tell you, from the year I started teaching to the year I retired, the decorum, the respect level, I mean, that's just a generational thing. I don't think it's just karate. I think it's just across the universe, to be honest with you. So I think that's kind of what I wish was still there, you know, where yes, sir, no, sir, there was still that decorum. I had a kid walk up to me and say, some guy came up to me and goes, "You cheated him because you don't like his father." And I looked at him, I go, "Who's his father?" And he goes, oh, never mind. And I'm like, so nobody loses, everyone gets cheated. And, you know, I still tell my students, even with bad judging, somebody wins. So don't ever use judging as an excuse of losing. So I used to say, I want my points to be so clear, Stevie Wonder could see them, you know, and that's, take the responsibility. If I wasn't in the right position, I wasn't, you know, the best punch I ever threw in my entire career as a fighter, not one judge saw, but the girl ended up flat on her back. I went home thinking, yes, I have that. I lost, but I won, you know. So anyway, I just wish that was still there. But I love the evolution. I like the more divisions because I like more people to have a chance to win. But I really wish that was still there. That's my only wish.
Awesome. Thank you for giving us that great insight and perspective. Okay, excuse me. This question is for anyone to answer, but I'm actually going to, I have a little spinner here, and I am going to spin and see. Sinead. Let's see. Do you have any secret mantras or whatnot, secret mantras to help you with nerves?
Oh gosh. I don't think I do. I think as I've gotten older, I've learned to just accept my nerves because they're not going anywhere. So I think as you grow and you realize that they're they don't become a barrier anymore. It's almost like this thing you get used to, just like you wake up and you have your breakfast or you kind of go on with your day. I think I've learned to sort of embrace that. And I like to sort of put that across to a lot of my students nowadays as well, that, you know, you're nervous. That means it's important to you. And it means that like it means something to you. Embrace the nerves of it, enjoy that moment, because a lot in your day to day, you don't necessarily get nervous every day. So it's like a different emotion, and something that spurs you on to do something different, I think. But yeah, I think that's probably me, but I'm probably the wrong person to ask that question.
Well, thank you. I appreciate it. Okay, let's see. I think I'm just making sure that we have answered all of the questions. Heather, I think somebody else wants to know directly from you, Heather, about your thoughts and your observations about coming up through the ranks, and whether or not you found the competition gets harder in either kata or forms or sparring. Sorry about that.
Actually, my message to you was that Pauline wanted to answer that question.
Oh, Pauline, this question is for you.
Hello. Yeah, I just wanted to add a couple of things to that question. So over the years, really competition has become different. So I've noticed in the tournament circuit, especially on the NASCA circuit, that it's kind of leading, karate it's more sport karate now, and it's led more to acrobatics. So in the forms divisions, in the weapons divisions. So for example, if someone's competing in a bow staff division and it's an open bow staff division, you can really release anything. So you can, it's more baton twirling. So it's more of baton twirling, neck rolls. You get into the point it's really more of the acrobatics nowadays in the flips. So a lot of the open forms divisions too, besides the weapons divisions, have a lot of like flips in them, and it's leading more to it's more sport karate now, and it's leading more towards that. I see at a lot of the NASCA tournaments, it's leading more towards that. And I mean, don't get me wrong, it's like entertaining and fun to watch, but at the same time, we're not keeping it more traditional. So I mean, for me, I like to watch. I don't do any weapons, but for me to, I really like watching like the traditional bow staff forms. You know, the more traditional. So yeah, that's just what I wanted to add to that question.
Awesome, thank you. Okay, I think we have all of the questions. I want to thank everybody for putting their questions in the chat. And I am ready to turn it back over to Barb.
Hi, you guys. Thank you. First, I'd like to thank everybody who came today and to view this and support us in this way. I'm going a little off script is how I usually conclude this, because during listening to these fine women share their stories and teach us some of the things that they do for preparation, then some adjectives and thoughts about this whole day kind of came to my mind. So I'd like to share them with you. These are adjectives, just things to describe my thoughts during this time. Dedication, enthusiasm, intentness, transparency, goodwill and gratitude, team spirit, friendship, passionate, influencers, refreshing, dedicated, making memories, encouraging others. I heard that from, and probably more from everybody as we were listening to this. It's just such a refreshing feeling to my soul to listen and hear passionate women come together and share themselves. I really, truly appreciate the panelists for being here, and thank you so much for what you're doing to support Kenpo Women's Symposium. And everybody who is here listening and watching, thank you so much. Those who have supported us in Facebook, that's so appreciated. We encourage more. We'd love to. We have 515. It'd be great if we could have 600 people on Facebook. by the middle to the end of October. So thank you. Thank you each and every one of the team members who are here that put this on and organized this. Each of you are so valuable, and it's so appreciated. So I'm going to conclude my thoughts today and wish you all a wonderful rest of your afternoon. And please, I hope you listen to, or you think about some of the things that I mentioned that were my thoughts, because I think what they are is just a feeling of all around goodwill and to giving to others and to helping others. And it's so very, very important. And so please think about those, and you guys have a good rest of your day.
All right, we put the link back up for the survey, and we'd love for everyone to go ahead and either scan the QR code, or you can enter the URL address there for taking the survey. And I've also put it in the chat so that you can just click on it if you want to as well. And I'm going to have all the panelists come back up onto the screen with their cameras on and their audio off, so we can go ahead and get a group picture.